Hey everyone, I'm Matt. I'm the owner here at Mimics and Misfits and the writer of our upcoming tabletop system Duality. From our poll on Kickstarter, I'm here to talk to you today about world building and how that works in a system that combines two different genres together. So, in our book on this handy page, we do have noted how to speedrun world building. And we're going to do a little bit of that today together. Now, step one for any game of Duality is to choose which worlds you want your game to take part in. Normally, this would be a conversation with players, but because we're doing a little background building, I'm just going to go ahead and say we're going to do modern horror and the Wild West. Now, these are some of my favorite, and this is actually what we did for Railroaded Hauntings. And to give you kind of a peek behind, that's what we're going to go through today. So, after choosing our two worlds, we named our Wild West town Grist Mill and our modern horror town Downing's Rest. So now you need to decide what level of connection exists between the world. And this can be anything from general topography and population all the way down to a one-to-one, room to room, item to item match. Now, topography is obviously the easiest to go with. Where you have a town, you have a town, and you can approximate at any time where your players shift from one side to the other in the moment. Scaling to one means you really only need to make one map because everything is identical. But to have that level of interaction, you're also going to kind of build your big bad in the same process because that takes personal interference to reach that level. So, what we did for our towns of Gristmill and Downing's Rest is we went with a building to building pattern. So, we started going over our maps and said, let's start with the Rock Lizard Lounge. It is a tavern in the southwest corner of Grist Mill. It's one of the oldest buildings in town and where our players started for the game because it's where you get a lot of insight, especially for folks who live in town. The Rock Lizard served as both a pub and an eatery when they didn't want to do things of their own at home. So on the other side, we knew there was going to be a building that occupied that footprint. Now, why do I say that footprint? The buildings are not designed the same. They just happen to take up the same, I want to say it was like 40-foot by 50-foot space on the map. So here we had the Rock Lizard Lounge. And over here we had Downing Manor. So now that we've aligned those spaces, we can say point to point when people shift over from the Wild West world to the modern horror world within the Rock Lizard Lounge, they move to an appropriate point in Downing Manor. And you can start to plan for some of those things. Say you want a natural disaster to happen and tornado, trees, I'm not even sure what would rip through in the desert, but takes out, ooh, earthquake. Earthquake takes out part of the Rock Lizard Lounge and makes it impassable. You create this huge gap, say 20 feet wide, 100 feet deep, that the players need to get across because what they want is on the other side of it. Who they need to save is on the other side of it. They can then decide to shift worlds from the Rock Lizard Lounge. I'm going to pick this up so folks can see it a little better. So you could shift worlds from the Rock Lizard Lounge going over this gap. If they start here, they would start here in the manor and they could make their way through to the other side and then shift back, finding what it was they were looking for. Now, how does that work when it comes to enemies or creatures or interactions with other NPCs? One of the biggest things that we're going to say is there are people that can move through the shift. It is a semi known feature in the game. Now, just because it's known doesn't mean it's well accepted. Everybody can be superstitious. And I will tell you right now, even if I knew about it, if someone disappeared in front of me, we have a problem. Something happened here. So characters need to be careful moving back and forth. And when it comes to monsters, that's up to you as the storyteller. We've done a couple different versions where there are a number of NPCs in Grist Mill equal to the number of NPCs in Downing's Rest, with the exception of the big bad, who can also move back and forth. The idea being that everyone on one side has some kind of connection to something on the other side. That does not mean it's always one to one. One of the things we did in our Dragon's Den game is there was literally a red dragon as an enemy and a gang leader called the Dragon. Now, there's no way that a human is as powerful as a dragon. It's just not going to happen. So, what we did to balance it is all of the stamina of the gang in the cyberpunk world added up to the stamina of the dragon on the other side. And as people were taken out, the dragon's stamina reduced because you're pulling on that connection and kind of destroying it, which is something you may be seeing if you're keeping up with our Delta Shift game. If something has an original connection between worlds and is harmed, that harm carries through. So people need to take care with the NPCs they're interacting with on either side because they don't always look the same. They don't always act the same. So now we have our town, our connections, and to give you an idea of what we mean by building to building, at the northeast part of Grist Mill, there are a set of 3 houses that guard the northeastern entrance to the town. People that stay there, they don't really guard per se, but you keep a lookout on who's coming into town. Some of the nosier folks in town live there. In Downing's Rest, those 3 buildings are one building, and it is the arched gateway into town with secure gates in the central area that allow for kind of a kill box when you trap people between the gates. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have identical setups. Somebody who shifts over from this central building could find themselves stuck between the gates or in the guards barrack upstairs. After that, you have your world, you have your connections, you have your maps laid out. The next step is filling it with life. Like I mentioned, NPC counts for any NPCs who can't shift between worlds. That counts enemies, that counts townsfolk, kings, whatever. They have someone on the other side that they correspond with. It does not always mean that they are of the same rank, strength, any of that. There is just something in the other world they are connected to. And then you come down to your missions. So the mission in Railroaded Hauntings was a little more complicated. So we're going to look at our cyberpunk and fantasy uh, the Dragon's Den mission. They were hired to recover a cybernetic leg and only got slightly distracted by the pursuit of hats. And in the other world, the dragon was guarding its hoard, and within it were a pair of magical boots. Acquiring one acquires the other for items of this quality. As soon as you make something a quest item, it should exist across both areas. Now, what can the themes of the world be? What does it look like? We do have a section in the book called A Piece of Our World, where we start to introduce you to bits of settings. And I'm excited to say that we're going to be working on a setting guide that could be put together as a stretch goal. We would love to hit 100% funded to really get into what those stretch goals are. Thank you to everybody for getting us over 70% funded. It was astounding to see $2,500 cross the board. So excited. I can't believe there's 20 days left. This is going to be amazing. And I hope that you get to have some amazing adventures as well. Thanks for hanging out.